Hello, everybody, and welcome to Jack's Corner. I'm Tarzan Bonanno, and with me, as always, is our founder, Jack Figgle. We're back to our regularly scheduled program of the stories of the meets between Jack and Patriarch Bartholomew, and this is where we're gonna go. So, Jack, how are you doing?
Good, Tarzan. Glory to Jesus Christ.
Glory to him forever.
I'm doing well today. How are you?
That is good. I'm doing well as well. Uh,
Good.
so, It's been 2 weeks since our last time talking about Patriarch Bartholomew. Where are you taking us this time?
All right. This time is in November of the year 2000. So now approaching 25 years ago. So a bit of a distant memory. And it was the year after Archbishop Vsevolod and I had visited Pope St. John Paul II and had gifted him a copy of the Archbishop's book, Volume 1 of We Are All Brothers. And so we decided if we gave a special edition to the Pope, we should do the same for the Patriarch. And so after our visit in December of 2000, I'm sorry, December of 1999, that we talked about in a previous episode, we started the planning and scheduling to go visit him in Constantinople, the Ecumenical Patriarch. And because I was working full time as a design consultant for the project management system for Mack Trucks in Allentown, Pennsylvania, I really couldn't afford a whole lot of time off on weekdays. And so we planned this trip to be very short and to coincide when the Archbishop was already in Istanbul on some other business with the Ukrainian Orthodox Church that he was negotiating with the Patriarch about bringing the schismatic wing of the Ukrainian Orthodox Church in North America and Australia into the Ecumenical Patriarchate. This is all before, the situation today and all the things that have been going on in the last 5 to 10 years in Ukraine. So if you remember 25 years ago, none of this sort of stuff, existed that we have today. So this was prior to all that. And the group that was associated with the Ukrainian Orthodox Church of the USA compared to Archbishop Vsevolod's canonical group, the Ukrainian Orthodox Church of America. They had two different names. One was canonically recognized and the other was not. And the Archbishop was trying to get the uncanonical group recognized to be canonical by the Ecumenical Patriarch. So this is a bit of the precursor of the problems that we've had over the last, several years of Bartholomew recognizing the group in Ukraine as being canonical that was affiliated with this group in America that he recognized and brought into his Omophore 20 years ago. So the audience was arranged for a Saturday morning at 9 o'clock, the Saturday after Thanksgiving, and I left from Newark Airport nonstop to Istanbul rather than driving home and then having to fly from here because I needed to get back to Allentown for work the next week as quick as I could. So I left, I think, on a Thursday night, arrived midday on Friday. Father Eugene, the protosyncellus of Archbishop Vsevolod's diocese, or the vicar general, the number 2 guy, met me there and said, I have good news and bad news. The good news is our audience is still scheduled with the Patriarch, But the bad news is Archbishop Sevlod had to fly off to Belgium to negotiate some issues going on with Western Europe and the Ukrainian Orthodox that were there, and that the Patriarch dispensed him to go take care of the problem. And so he would not be with us for the audience. And I said, well, we're presenting a book that he wrote, but since the audience is scheduled,
the show must go on.
The show must go on, and it actually worked out better, as you'll hear in a few minutes, of how the story unfolded, of me being there with the Patriarch, with this priest, where I was the main event of the show rather than the Archbishop. And it gave some more one-on-one time of conversation with the Patriarch. This now my second time having met him. And as we'll hear in future episodes, many more encounters with the Patriarch to come. So this is the second time I met him. And so we, Friday night after I arrived, went out for dinner just in the hotel. We wanted to get an early night's sleep. I was still jet lagged, of course, having just landed. And so we checked in our hotel. One thing I do remember from the time, they were renovating and reconstructing the airport at the time. And it was a real pain to get through with baggage and finding a taxi and all that sort of thing, that they were rebuilding the airport, which has now been abandoned. And the Turks have built an entirely brand new airport up on the Black Sea for Istanbul. And the renovations of 25 years ago that they were doing to modernize the airport are just completely abandoned. I don't think the airport's used at all anymore.
They just gave up, and it probably looks out of date because it was 25 years ago.
That's right, exactly. And imagine what it was before the renovation 25 years ago. It was, really, really a rough airport to fly through. The new one is huge, and it's the biggest airport I have ever been in. It's even bigger than LAX or Kennedy. And the space inside the terminal to get from gate to gate or gate to the baggage claim is if it wasn't for the wheelchairs, I never would have made it on my last trip there last summer. It's got to be over a mile walk to get from the gate to baggage claim.
I've never been, but all I'm thinking is the first time I went to the Orlando airport to visit when I went to college. Before I ended up going to college there, but to visit it.
Yeah. Well, think of this. This is triple the size of Orlando.
I don't know how. But okay.
They just took a big chunk of land and start building a brand new airport that Erdogan wants it to rival Heathrow Airport as the largest airport in Europe. And to become the crossroads of freight and people between Asia and Europe, all passing through Istanbul. And to this day, you can fly to almost any city in Europe through Istanbul for 40% cheaper than any nonstop flight. But you have to go through Istanbul to get there. So they have all these nonstops from American cities to Istanbul, and then you connect there to get to someplace in Europe, and they attract you to take their flights instead of others by making them so cheap.
Okay.
So I landed at the airport, and Father Eugene said, the audience is on, but the Archbishop will not be joining us. And I said, okay, fine. So the next morning, Saturday, we got up, put our business suits on, put our cassocks into our carry bags, because at that time, and still somewhat to this day, although it's not as strict. Clergy were not permitted to wear clerics on the streets of Istanbul.
Yes.
Because in the days of the Byzantine Empire, clerics were part of the government, and Erdogan is trying to claim that they're a secular government and they have no clerics, and therefore, especially Orthodox clerics that would be wearing cassocks and things like that, have to walk around in civilian clothes. The only person who's allowed to wear a cassock is the Patriarch himself.
Yes, I remember you saying something like this in a previous meeting.
Right. So we went and had our little bags, and we were sitting in the Archdeacon's office waiting for our 9 o'clock appointment in our cassocks and with the little container I had with the Archbishop's book that was the gift we were there for. And I had made the whole trip all the way from Allentown, well, from Newark to Istanbul, just for this 30-minute audience to give him the book. We had nothing else scheduled on the whole trip. That was the purpose. And for a private audience with the Patriarch, it was worth it.
That's good.
So about 15 minutes before the audience, a deacon comes in and said, I'm sorry, Mr. Figo, something has come up that the Patriarch cannot meet you until 11:30. And so we have a car and driver here for you to take you over to the park near Hagia Sophia that you can walk around, visit the museum if you wish, or whatever, rather than just sit here in the office. And then the car will bring you back in time for the audience. So we got in the car in our civilian clothes, left everything behind, and went over to the park. And we just sat around looking at the fountains and looking at the people and being accosted by rug merchants who wanted to sell us carpets because we were dressed in suits, looked like we were tourists for sure. And so I remember that was one of the times when I've been almost manhandled by rug merchants trying to get me to go to their store and see their wares. They never give up. So the car came and got us, and we went back for the audience, put our cassocks on, and were escorted in. And we're standing in front of the Patriarch's desk, and I present the book, and had it specially leather bound for him as we had done for the Pope. And he flipped through it and saw what it contained, and we had a little chit chat. And he turns to us, Father Eugene and I, and says to both of us, would you like a pectoral cross to remember your visit? And of course, Father Eugene jumped at the chance and said, of course, your All Holiness. And so the Patriarch came from around the desk with a little box, took the cross out that had an inscription on the backside, and he put it around Father Eugene's neck. Well, I was trying to keep quiet and out of the spotlight for those few minutes. And then the Patriarch turns to me, literally in front of me, standing there, and said, would you like one too?
Are you even allowed to have one? Like, I know you couldn't necessarily wear one, but or would
I was in deacon school, and so I said to His All Holiness, although I was in a cassock like a seminarian would be, and I said to His All Holiness, "Oh, Your All Holiness, I'm sorry, I'm a deacon candidate. I'm not worthy to wear a cross yet." And he said to me, "What's a deacon candidate?" Because in the Orthodox Church, you don't just go to school to become a deacon. You go to seminary, and then you decide along the way how far up the ladder you want to go in terms of ordination. you have to request orders, and then they are approved by your hierarch for each level. And in the Orthodox Church and also the Eastern Catholic Church, we start with the lowest level of what are called minor orders. So during deacon school, we were tonsured, which meant we were made a monk, and had a piece of our hair cut off. We were made acolytes and given a candle to carry. Essentially, the other term is candle bearer or acolyte, a server. And we were officially made readers. And part of the ordination ceremony, if you want to call it that, was to do a reading. And when my class was given all these minor orders by Bishop Pataki, after our second year of 4-year summer schools, there was 18 of us, all done at one time. And so we split the reading that's done as part of that service into 18 verses, and each of us did one. And it went all the way down the center aisle of the church with each of us doing one piece of it. And it was very, very difficult because you had to pick up the pitch from the guy in front of you. And if the guy in front of you was not a very good singer, it was very difficult to get the pitch, or you had to start all over again. And anyway, and I'm sorry to say, there were a few members of my class who could not carry a tune whatsoever.
So you had to explain all that to Patriarch?
No, I didn't go into all that detail. I just simply said I was a reader, and therefore I was not authorized to wear a pectoral cross yet until I was a priest. But he asked, well, what is a deacon candidate? And then I told him a little about the story that we go to deacon school to be as a candidate, and that maybe someday I will be ordained a deacon. And then he said to me, and when will that be? And I said, when you're in front of the patriarch and he's asking you these questions, you got to think fast to come up with, a good answer that you're not going to get in trouble for later. And so all I could come up with was, when the bishop thinks I'm ready. And he smiled. I guess I gave a good answer.
Sounds like a good answer.
So then we sat down and we talked a little more, and I spoke to him about having a group come and holding an Orient conference in Istanbul the next year, the next year in 2001. He thought it was a great idea. I reviewed some dates with him, and we settled on December of 2001, so about a year after I was there. And then I was able to communicate through the deacon in the English language office more details as the agenda and everything came together. But that was the first request of him to have an audience with him, with a group that I would bring to Istanbul, and that he would also come and greet the conference at the hotel where we were going to have our plenary meetings. And that was a bit of a big deal, because when he left the compound of the 4-block area called the Fenar, which is his equivalent of Vatican City, he sort of had to make special arrangements with the Turkish government, to go. But so very different than back then how the Pope would travel. I think Pope Francis is a lot more low key these days. He doesn't have the big limo, and he doesn't have but he still has a certain amount of security and a entourage and a whole caravan of cars and vehicles. The patriarch came by himself with his driver in a Mercedes-Benz sedan. And that was it.
All right.
And when he arrived at the hotel, which was later that year, or the next year, he just simply, got out of his car. I escorted him into the hotel, down to our meeting room, and we had our session with him. So, so very different than how the Pope can travel around Rome. And we talked about all those logistics and a topic. I also asked him for input about speakers, and so he was very helpful. And I think he genuinely wanted to be engaged and genuinely contributed to the topic and content of our discussion. So he was very supportive and encouraging for that. And so as a result, now 20 years later, we've had 3 such conferences plus additional pilgrimage trips. And every time I visit, he's been, extremely friendly and open to welcoming our little group. So that was the trip in November of the year 2000 to meet Patriarch Bartholomew and plan the first Orientale Lumen Euro East #1 conference that took place in December of 2001, so about a year later.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
I have Euro East over here, so I was
Okay.
checking the date.
Well, I've got it here on my calendar with the dates written in December 3 to 7 of 2001. So, but I have a flash news report to give to all our listeners.
All right, go for it.
I received this letter by email yesterday. It's dated the 5th of March, so a couple of days ago. It's addressed to me at the Orientale Lumen conferences here in Fairfax. And the letter goes, Dear Mr. Figel, thank you most sincerely for your kind letter of 1 March informing me of the resumption in person of the Orientale Lumen conferences and that the 28th conference will be held in Washington, D.C. on 17 to 20 of June of 2024 on the topic primacy in the 21st century, with a particular focus on the Ravenna, Chieti, and Alexandria documents. This is excellent news, as I am convinced that the Orientale Lumen conferences are a unique opportunity for fraternal encounters, ecumenical reflection, and reception of bilateral Catholic Orthodox dialogues. Unfortunately, I will not be able to take part in the conference due to commitments already made, but I am happy to send Reverend Father Hyacinthe d'Estavel, who will take part as a plenary speaker and panelist. I will also record a short video message as you have invited me to do so. With prayerful best wishes for the successful outcome of the conference and trusting it may offer a deep insight into the latest documents of the Catholic Orthodox theological dialogue, I remain sincerely yours, Kurt Cardinal Koch, Prefect of the Dicastery for Promoting Christian Unity.
Nice. All right.
So
well,
we
y'all heard
have
it.
we have the full support of the Vatican for our conference in June, and indeed, Cardinal Koch is going to give us a short video greeting that we'll show at the opening session, and he is sending the staff person that works in his dicastery, Father Hyacinthe, who has been to our conferences, I think, twice in the past, and he is sort of the point man for the Eastern Orthodox Catholic dialogue, and therefore is the most knowledgeable about the Eastern Orthodox churches as opposed to the dialogues that they carry on with other churches. So he was probably at all three of these meetings where these documents were agreed, Ravenna, Chieti, and Alexandria. And so he'll be able to give us a firsthand account of what it was like being there. And I'm so very, very pleased that he's going to be able to come in person to be a panelist and to give a talk and be with us for the whole week. He's a Dominican priest, and so he'll stay at the Dominican House in Washington, D.C. It'll be great to see him again, since before COVID was the last time he was there. So this is really, really great news that Cardinal Koch is still very much on our side and is supporting our gathering in June. The details of which I'll be announcing through email and on this program as the further details develop. Again, those dates of the conference are the 17th to the 20th of June of this year. And the topic, if you were listening to the front of the letter, is primacy in the 21st century.
All right. Well, you all heard that. Mark your calendars for that date and prepare to go.
And you heard it here first. Yeah. Breaking news.
Yes. All right. Well, does that conclude everything you have to tell us for this episode?
Yep.
All right. Well, then, for all of you guys coming in and listening, thank you so much for coming and listening. Thank you, Jack, for telling us this tale of the second time, right? You said second time that you met Patriarch Bartholomew. And
the first time we gave him the Mohila book. This is the second audience I've had. And we have several more to discuss in future episodes.
Yes. And so come back next week for another meeting with Patriarch Bartholomew. And thank you, God bless, and goodbye.